And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. These words which I'm commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to everyone worshiping with us at home. The name of the message today is called, Here Comes Peter Cottontail, Hopping All the Way to Hell. I'll bet you can't tell what we're going to talk about today, can you? That's right. Now, though Christians from the Orthodox Christian churches will be celebrating it on April the 8th, which next week, I guess. Tomorrow is when most Christians from the Church of the West, in other words, from the Roman Catholic Church and its influences, are going to be observing Easter. And they will have Easter bunnies and chocolate bunnies and Easter chicks and colored eggs and Easter egg hunts and egg rolls and hot cross buns and Easter ham. And this will be done in many instances right at the churches where they're supposedly celebrating the resurrection of the Messiah. And they're going to have a lot of fun. They're going to have a lot of fun. Is there anything wrong with what they're doing? It is if the word of Elohim is where you get your instructions. All right? Is Yahweh against having fun? No. There's absolutely not. There are too many instances in the Scripture where it talks about rejoicing before Yahweh for that to be true. Amen? All right? But if Yahweh already says that He hates something, what makes you think that He's going to think it's a proper form of fun? He's not. All right? You see, all of the things that I mentioned are not instructed by Yahweh. As a matter of fact, they are all either condemned by Yahweh directly or condemned because they're pagan in their association. Right? Now, I'm not going to do an exhaustive expose on where all these customs come from, and you can certainly do that pretty easily on the internet. But we will look at some of the things in the Scripture that should help us to see clearly that true believers should abstain from these things for several reasons. All right? A couple are that they are from pagan religion and they provoke Yahweh. All right? And He says so. All right? So, how do we know that He hates this stuff being used in worshiping Him? Well, let's turn our scriptures to Deuteronomy Chapter 12. And for you folks at home, please sit with your scriptures, but we are going to be reading a lot of scripture today. And Deuteronomy chapter 12, we're going to start reading verse 28. We're on page 199 in the 98 ISR. Deuteronomy 12:28. Guard and obey all these words which I command you, that it might be well with you and your children after you forever, when you do what is good and right in the eyes of Yahweh your Elohim. When Yahweh your Elohim does cut off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, and you dispossess them and dwell in their land, what are those next two words? Guard yourself that you are not what? Ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire about their mighty ones, saying, how did these nations serve their mighty ones, and let me do so too. Now look at this next part. It says, do not do so to Yahweh your Elohim. For every abomination which Yahweh what? Hates. Every abomination which Yahweh hates, they have done to their mighty ones, for they even burn their sons and daughters in the fire to their mighty ones. That seems pretty plain, doesn't it? That seems pretty plain. Don't take pagan practices to worship Yahweh. He hates what they do. He said so. All right? And He even follows it up with this. Look at the next verse. all the words I am what? Commanding you, guard to do it. Do not, read the rest of that sentence with me, add to it nor take away from it. That seems pretty plain too, doesn't it? Right? You see, Yahweh has given us what He wants. He is the creator of all, and He doesn't need any of our help. Amen? All right? But all these things which we've mentioned and others, they come from paganism, which He hates. The practice of Lent is said to have come from weeping for Tammuz. Hot crossed buns were made for the Queen Mother of Heaven, and the symbol of her son, the Tav, sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's like this, the X, which is the first letter of the name of Tammuz. All right? The Christians saw it that they could keep it by merely reassociating that X with the cross. All right? And this, even the name Easter, is the name of a pagan goddess which is associated with the Queen Mother of Heaven. And you know what? We can actually even see that from the Scripture, which we will in a little bit. There is a book in the Scripture about a lady named Hadassah. All right? You probably recognize her more for the Persian name that she was given. All right? And that name was Esther. Sounds a little familiar, a little similar, doesn't it? Esther. Well, Esther means star. Means star. And, all right? But watch this. 1 Kings chapter 11. 1 Kings chapter 11. I'm going to start reading verse 4. It's going to be on page 361. First King chapter 11, verse 4. And it came to be when Shlomo, that's the fellow that we normally are familiar with called Solomon, the king, Shlomo was old, that his what? His wives turned away his heart after other mighty ones. And his heart was not perfect with Yahweh his Elohim, as was the heart of his father Dawid. And Shlomo went after Ashtoreth, the mighty one of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Amorites. Now, before we go further, I want to share with you who Ashtaroth was. Comes from Strong's, or you can look it up, Strong's number in the Hebrew, 6253. The Brown Driver's Brig definition says Ashtoreth means star. See, look at how similar Esther and Ashtaroth are. You see the similarities there. All right, now one's a Persian derivation, all right, but there's the similarity is there. All right, Ashtoreth equals star. The principal female deity, that means it's a goddess. The principal female deity of the Phoenicians worshipped in war and fertility. Also, Ishtar in Assyria, and a star, you hear the star in there? Astarte by the Greeks and Romans. And it's a noun, proper and feminine. All right, do you see how the word for star is in the middle of all these ancient words that still sound like Easter? All right, Esther, Ashtaroth, Astarte, Ishtar. All right. This is who King Shlomo was worshiping, among others. All right. Now, let's see if it works out real well for him in his kingdom. Verse 6. And Shlomo did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and did not follow Yahweh completely like his father Dawid. Then Shlomo built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and the hill that is east of on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And he did for all his for all his foreign wives who burned incense and slaughtered to their mighty ones. Therefore Yahweh was enraged with Shlomo because his heart had turned away from Yahweh Elohim of Yisrael, who had appeared to him twice. You know what? That is something right there. You know? And had commanded him concerning his word not to go after other mighty ones. But he did not guard what Yahweh had commanded. And Yahweh said to Shlomo, look at this, because you have done this and have not guarded my covenant and my laws which I have commanded you, I shall certainly tear the rain away from you and give it to your servant. Only I do not do it in your days for the sake of your father Dawid. Out of the hand of your son I shall tear it. All right, that's not good, amen? Okay? Now, but he should have known better, because mixing pagan worship, what Yahweh commanded is not, against what Yahweh commanded is not something new. All right? Look in Exodus 32. And I wish we had more time today to look at some of this, because we're just going to scratch the surface a little bit, brothers and sisters. Exodus 32, verse 1. 32, verse 1. Moshe's up on the mountain getting the law from Yahweh. All right? And when the people saw that Moshe was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aharon and said to him, Arise, make us mighty ones who go before us. For this Moshe, the man who brought us up out from the land of Mitzrayim, that's Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. And Aharon said to them, Take off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people took off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aharon. And he took this from their hand, and he formed it with an engraving tool and made a molded calf. And they said, This is your mighty one, O Yisrael, that brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Aharon saw and built an altar before it. And Aharon called out and said, Tomorrow is a festival to Yahweh. So, now, a lot of times people don't pick that up, especially if you're reading a translation that doesn't have the Father's name in there. They don't realize they're calling this calf Yahweh. And they're saying this calf is what brought them out of Mitzrayim. And we see them incorporating Yahweh worship into heathen worship all the way back then. All right? See, it's nothing new in Shlomo's day. All right? Well, what did Yahweh think about it? Verse 6. And they rose early on the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up early to play. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Go get down, for the people whom you brought out of the land of Mitzrayim have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf and have bowed themselves to it and slaughtered to it and said, This is your mighty one, O Yisrael, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. You realize they've already been given the Ten Commandments at this point. You know, they've already been given that. All right. And Yahweh said to Moshe, I have seen this people, and see, it is a stiff-necked people. And now let me alone, that my wrath might burn against them, and I consume them, then I make of you a great nation. All right, now, as we know, the Levites came in and they killed all the people who had been involved in this egregious sin, and Yahweh gave them a priesthood as a result. All right, so that tells you right there, Yahweh was disappointed in this crowd here, and he was pleased with what these did over here. All right. Moshe ground the gold calf up and put it in the water for the people to drink it, which turned it into dung and urine as it went through their systems. And that's what Yahweh thought about the little mighty one, and then mixing it with worship of Yahweh. Okay? And we're still talking about this several thousand years later. It's a big deal. It was not lost to history. All right? Now, the word Easter, as in reference to the resurrection, is really not found in the Scripture. It's really not there. It does show up in the King James and the Geneva version once, and we're going to look at that in a minute, and in the Bishop's Bible 3 times. All right. But here's how it reads in the KJV. You can turn there if you want to, and you can follow along in your version. It's Acts 12. Acts chapter 12. We're going to start reading in verse 1. And in ISR, it's on page 1063. Now, about that time, verse 1, 12:1, about that time Herod the king stretched forth his hand to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. All right. The word translated Easter here is Strong's number G, which stands for Greek 3957, and is the Greek word Pascha. All right. It's used 30 times in the New Testament writings. And do you have any idea what the word Pascha is translated the other 29 times? Passover. That's right, it's Passover. And that's where we get the word Paschal lamb, for the Passover lamb. All right? And do you know why it's translated as Passover the other 29 times? Because that's what it is. It's Passover. It's Passover. All right? It does not mean Easter. It does not mean Ishtar. It does not mean a star day. It does not mean Ashtaroth. It does not mean Easter. It means Passover. All right? Now, I think this is a translator pulling a fast one. That's what I think it is on the reader. Now, when you tell Christians these things, they can get really irritated, but that's not new either. All right? It makes Jews mad too. I'll show you. Acts chapter 7. It's part of Stephen's preaching which got him killed. Acts chapter 7. We're going to start reading in verse 33. I'm going to read a pretty good bit here. But Yahweh said to him, talking to Moshe, Stephen's recounting things from the account there. But Yahweh said to him, take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is set apart ground. I have certainly seen the evil treatment of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their groaning and have come down to deliver them. And now, come, let me send you to Mitzrayim. And Moshe, whom they had refused, saying, who made you a ruler and a judge? This one Elohim sent to be ruler and deliverer by the hand of the messenger who appeared to him in the bush. This one led them out after he had done wonders and signs in the land of Mitzrayim and in the Red Sea and in the wilderness 40 years. This is the Moshe who said to the children of Israel, Yahweh your Elohim shall raise up for you a prophet like me from your brothers, whom you shall hear. This is he who was in the assembly in the wilderness with the messenger who spoke to him on Mount Sinai, and with our fathers who received the living words to give to us, unto whom our fathers would not become obedient, but thrust away. And in their heart they turned back to Mitzrayim. See, that's what we were talking about a while ago, turning back to Mitzrayim. Saying to Aharon, make us mighty ones to go before us. For this Moshe who led us out of the land of Mitzrayim, we do not know what has become of him. And they made a calf in those days and brought what? An offering to the idol. And were rejoicing in the works of their hands. Do you see that? Rejoicing in the works of their hand. And you know what? They were having fun. They were rejoicing. It said they rose up to play. They were having fun. So Elohim turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven. Do you realize that this includes stars and sun and queen mothers of heaven and the likes? All right? As it has been written in the book of the prophets, did you bring slaughtered beasts and offerings unto me during 40 years in the wilderness, O house of Israel? And you took up the tent of Molech and the what? The star of your mighty one, Kiyun, images which you made to bow before them. Therefore I shall remove you beyond Babel. The tent of witness was with our fathers in the wilderness, as he appointed, instructing Moshe to make it according to the pattern that we had seen, which our fathers, having received it in turn, also brought with Yehoshua into the land possessed by the Gentiles, whom Elohim drove out before the face of our fathers until the days of David, who found favor before Elohim and asked to find a dwelling for the Elohim of Yaakov. But Shlomo built him a house. However, the Most High does not dwell in dwellings made with hands. As the prophet says, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What house shall you build for me, says Yahweh, or what is the place of my rest? Has my hand not made all these? Remember a while ago I said he doesn't need our help. You stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears. You always resist the set-apart spirit, as your fathers did, you also do. Which of the prophets did your fathers not persecute? And they killed those who before announced the coming of the righteous one, of whom you now have become the betrayers and murderers, who received the Torah as it was ordained by messengers, but did not watch over it. And hearing this, they were cut to the hearts and gnashed their teeth at him, but he, being filled with a set-apart spirit, looked steadily into the heaven and saw the esteem of Elohim, and Yahshua standing at the right hand of Elohim, and said, Look, I see the heavens open, and the son of Adam standing at the right hand of Elohim, and crying out with a loud voice, they stopped their ears. Boy, isn't that a picture? Isn't that a picture? Somebody sitting there telling you you're transgressing, you're not keeping the Torah, you are mixing pagan worship or giving yourselves completely over to it, and you are just wrong for this, and they stop their ears up. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? They stop their ears up, gnash their teeth, and they rush upon him. All right, so in verse 58, and threw him out of the city and stoned him, and the witnesses laid down their garments at the feet of a young man named Shaul, and they were stoning Stephanos as he was calling and saying, Master Yahshua, receive my spirit. Kneeling down, he cried out with a loud voice, Master, do not hold this sin against them. And having said this, he fell asleep. You see, Yahweh hates this stuff, but people will not stop. It's nothing new, and it's still going on. All right? Look at these next two passages, and I remind you that these prophecies, which we're going to look at, they haven't taken place yet. All right? We're going to turn to Isaiah 65. YHWH 65. We're going to start reading in verse 1. Now, do you realize that the carcasses of rabbits and pigs are an abomination to Yahweh? I'm sure he loves looking at little rabbits, jumping around and everything. They're cute and whatnot, but the carcasses are an abomination. So are ours. But they are certainly not fit for an offering, and they cannot be set apart to Yahweh as an offering. Right? But that doesn't stop them from being set apart to other mighty ones, as we'll see. Isaiah 65, verse 1. I have let myself be inquired of, not by those who asked. I was found not by those who sought me. I said, here I am to a nation not calling on my name. That kind of sounds familiar. You ever seen those signs they put out in the yards that say, if my people who are called by my name, I'm like, why have you got that in your yard? Anyway, verse 2. I have held out my hands all day long to a stubborn people who walk in a way that is not good after their own thoughts. The people who, what are those next two words? provoke me. We will notice that Yahweh uses this language again and again throughout different prophets. He'll talk about how they are provoking him. The people who provoke me continually to my face, who slaughter in gardens and burn incense on altars of brick, who sit among the graves, that makes you unclean, and spend the night in secret places, who eat the flesh of pigs, and the broth of unclean meat is in their pots. That could be rabbits and hams, you know. That could be rabbits and hams, because it's talking about slaughtering here. Who say, verse 5, keep to yourself, do not come near me, for I am set apart to you. Okay, so you can be set apart to something other than Yahweh. All right. Look what Yahweh says. These are smoke in my nostrils, a fire that burns all day. See, it is written before me, I am not silent, but shall repay, and I shall repay into their bosom your crookednesses and the crookednesses of your fathers together, said Yahweh, who burned incense on the mountains and reproached me on the hills, and I shall measure their former work into their bosom. Thus said Yahweh, as the new wine is found in the cluster, and one shall say, do not destroy it, for there is a blessing in it, so I do for my servant's sake not to destroy them all. And I shall bring forth a seed from Yaakov and from Yehudah, an heir of my mountains. And my chosen ones shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there, and Sharon shall be a fold of flocks in the valley of Achor, a place for herds to lie down, for my people who have sought me. But you are those who forsake Yahweh, who forget my set-apart mountain, who prepare a table for God. Now, your KJV probably doesn't show that. But the ISR puts the Hebrew pronunciation of proper nouns in there, and this is a deity's name. His name is God. All right? But you are those who forsake Yahweh, who forget my set-apart mountain, who prepare a table for God, and you shall fill a drink, and you who fill a drink offering for Meni. And I shall allot you to the sword, and let you all bow down to the slaughter, because I called and you did not answer. I spoke and you did not hear, and you did evil before my eyes, and chose that in which I did not delight. Therefore, thus said the Master Yahweh, see my servants eat, but you hunger. See my servants drink, but you thirst. See my servants rejoice, but you are put to shame. See my servants sing for joy of heart. See, Yahweh's about us having fun, but you cry for sorrow of heart and wail for breaking of spirit. And you shall leave your name as a curse to my chosen, for the Master Yahweh shall put you to death and call his servants by another name, so that he who blesses himself in the earth does bless himself in the Elohim of truth. And he who swears in the earth does swear by the Elohim of truth, because the former distresses shall be forgotten, and because they shall be hidden from my eyes. For look, I'm creating a new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered nor come to heart, but be glad and rejoice forever in what I create. For look, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people a joy, and I shall rejoice in Jerusalem, and shall joy in my people, and let the voice of weeping no more be heard in her, nor the voice of crying. Now, look at the next chapter, 65:1. Thus said Yahweh, the heavens are my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you build for me? And where is this place of my rest? And all these my hand have made, and all these that exist, declares Yahweh. Yet to such a one I look, on him who is poor and bruised of spirit, and who trembles at my word. Boy, I'm going to tell you what, people aren't trembling at his word when you show them that he hates this stuff, and they say, I'm not doing it for that reason. Yeah, what did I say? I beg your pardon. Yeah, 66. Yeah, when people are saying, "Oh, I'm not doing it for that reason. It's for the children." You know, that's not trembling at his words, brothers and sisters. It is not trembling at his word. But verse 3: But whoever slaughters the bull slays a man, and whoever slaughters a lamb breaks a dog's neck. Whoever brings a grain offering pig's blood. Whoever burns incense blesses an idol. Indeed, they have chosen their what? Own ways. And their being delights in their what? Abominations. Just saying. I shall also choose their punishments and bring their fears on them, because I called, but no one answered. See, he's saying, that's the second time he said this. I spoke, and they did not hear. And they did evil before my eyes, and chose what is displeasing to me. Hear the word of Yahweh, you who tremble at his word. Your brothers who hate you, who cast you out for my name's sake, said, let Yahweh be esteemed, so that we see your joy. But they are put to shame. A roaring sound from the city, a voice from the Hekal, that'd be the temple, the Hekal, the voice of Yahweh repaying his enemies. Before she labored, she gave birth. Before pain came to her, she was delivered of a male child. Who has heard the like of this? Who has seen the like of these? Is a land brought forth in one day? Is a nation brought forth at once? For as soon as Zion labored, she gave birth to her children. Shall I bring to birth and not give delivery, says Yahweh? Shall I, who give delivery, restrain birth, said your Elohim? Rejoice with Jerusalem and be glad with her, all you who love her. Rejoice greatly with her, all you who mourn for her, so that you feed and shall be satisfied with your breasts of her comforts, so that you drink deeply and shall delight yourselves in her overflowing esteem. For thus said Yahweh, see, I am extending peace to her like a river, and the esteem of the Gentiles like a flowing stream. And you shall feed, and you shall feed. You shall be carried on the side and be fondled on her knees, as one whom his mother comforts. So I comfort you, and in Jerusalem you are comforted. And you shall see, and your heart shall rejoice, and your bones flourish as tender grass, and the hand of Yahweh shall be known to his servants, and his displeasure to his enemies. For look, Yahweh comes with fire. Okay, that's not a good thing if you're on the wrong side of the law. All right? And we're already seeing the benefits here of serving Yahweh and doing what he wants, right? All right, so we got two different scenarios going here. For look, verse 15, Yahweh comes with fire, with his chariots, like a whirlwind, to render his displeasure with burning, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword Yahweh shall judge all flesh, and the slain of Yahweh shall be many. Now this hasn't happened yet. Those who set themselves apart and cleanse themselves at the gardens after one in the midst, eating the flesh of pigs, like a Easter ham, and the abomination, and the mouse, are snatched away together, declares Yahweh. Has Yahweh snatched away people eating pigs and rodents yet? And doing these things? Okay. That means it's probably a good idea that maybe we shouldn't do this. Because Yahweh says this is coming, all right? It kind of sounds like rodents and pigs again here, doesn't it? Because rabbit is a rodent. All right. And I, verse 18, because of their works and their imaginations, and coming together all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my esteem, and I shall set a sign among them, and shall send some of those who escape to the nations, Tarshish and Pool and Lud, who draw the bow, and Tubal and Yawan, the coastlands afar off, who have not heard my report, nor seen my esteem, and they shall declare my esteem among the Gentiles. And they shall bring all your brothers as an offering to Yahweh out of all the Gentiles, on horses and chariots, and in litters, on mules and on camels, and my set-apart mountain, Jerusalem, declares Yahweh, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of Yahweh. And from them too I shall take for priests, for Levites, declares Yahweh. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me, declares Yahweh, so your seed and your name shall stand. And it shall be that from new moon to new moon, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahweh, and they shall go forth and look upon what? The corpses of the men who have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, and their fire not be quenched, and they shall be repulsive to all flesh. Okay? This sounds to me like a situation that I don't want to be a part of. I mean, but we see that it's talking about these things are repulsive to Yahweh, but they're what? Things that have come from the imaginations of people's minds, their own desires, their own creations. All right. Now, look with me in Jeremiah chapter 7. Just a few pages over. We'll start reading verse 1. Why are we looking at these things? Because we want to see that putting lipstick on a pig is still a pig. And if Yahweh doesn't like it then, He doesn't like it now. He says He hates it. He hates it. Jeremiah 7 verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah, from Yahweh saying, stand in the gate of the house of Yahweh. Okay? We know what the house of Yahweh is, right? And you shall proclaim there this word and shall say, hear the word of Yahweh, all you of Judah, who enter into these gates to bow before Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, make your ways and your deeds good, then I'll let you dwell in this place. Do not trust in these false words, saying, this is the hekel of Yahweh, the hekel of Yahweh, the hekel of Yahweh. For if you truly make your ways and your deeds good, if you truly do right ruling between a man and his neighbor, if you do not oppress the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, or walk after other mighty ones to your own evil, then I shall let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. See, you are trusting in false words which do not profit, stealing, murdering, and committing adultery, and swearing falsely, and burning incense to Baal, and walking after other mighty ones you have not known. And you came and stood before me in this house, which is called by my name, and said, we have been delivered in order to do all these abominations. Boy, does that sound familiar. We have been delivered to do all these abominations. Oh, we're not saying that you can still do it. It's just, if you do, it's okay. That's messed up. That's the kind of stuff they say, isn't it? What did you do, Matt? Yeah. Verse 11. Has this house which is called by my name become a den of robbers in your eyes? Look, even I myself have seen it, declares Yahweh. But now, go to my place in Shiloh, where I set my name at the first, and see what I did to it because of the evil of my people Yisrael. And now, because you have done all these works, declares Yahweh, and I spoke to you, rising up early and speaking, but you did not hear, and I called you, but you did not answer, I shall also do to this house, which is called by my name, in which you trust, and to this place which I gave to you and your fathers, as I did to Shiloh. And I shall cast you out of my presence, as I have cast out all your brothers, all the seed of Ephraim. And you do not pray for this people. You see that? He's telling Jeremiah, you do not pray for these people. You do not pray for these people. Why would Yahweh say that? Because enough is too much. He's had it. This is not, He's called and called and called, and they didn't answer, and they didn't answer, and they went after their own ways, and He's fed up. And He's telling him, verse 16, and you do not pray for this people, nor lift up a cry or a prayer for them, nor make intercession to me, for I do not hear you. Do you not see what they are doing in the cities of Yehudah and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children are gathering wood, the fathers are lighting the fire, and the women are kneading their dough to make cakes for the sovereigness of the heavens. It's the Queen of the heavens. And to pour out drink offerings to other mighty ones to what? Provoke me. Is it me they're provoking, declares Yahweh? Is it not themselves unto the shame of their own faces? Therefore, thus said the Master Yahweh, my displeasure and my wrath is poured out on this place, and on man and on beasts and on the trees of the field, on the fruit of the ground, and it shall be burned and not be quenched. That one happened. That one happened. All right, look at Jeremiah 44. Oh, by the way, while we were reading up there about making cakes for the Queen Mother of Heaven, it's may very well have been where these hot cross buns came from. Jeremiah 44, page 513. Verse 1. And the word that came to Jeremiah, concerning the Yehudim, the Jews, who were dwelling in the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, who were dwelling at Migdol and at Tachpanehes and at Noph and in the land of Patros, saying, Thus said Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, You yourselves have seen all the evil that I have brought on Jerusalem and on all the cities of Yehuda, and see this day they are a ruin, and no one dwells in them, because of their evil which they have done to provoke me. There's that word again. By going to burn incense, by serving other mighty ones whom they did not know, they nor you nor your fathers. And I sent to you all my servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, saying, Please do not do this abominable matter that I hate. That I hate. Again, that I hate. But they did not listen or incline their ear to turn from their evil, not to burn incense to other mighty ones. So my wrath and my displeasure were poured out and burned in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem, and they became a ruin and a wasteland as it is this day. And now, thus said Yahweh of Elohim of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, Why are you doing this great evil against your lives, and cut off from you man and woman, child and infant from the midst of Yehuda, leaving none to remain? By what? Provoking me with the works of your hands. By burning incense to other mighty ones in the land of Mitzrayim, where you have gone to dwell, to cut yourselves off, to be a curse and a reproach among all the nations of the earth. I just want to point this out right here. This shows us right here that going and living somewhere else besides the land of Israel, being dispersed, Yahweh still expects us to do what He says. Amen. He's still expecting us to do what He says. All right. Verse 9. Have you forgotten the evils of your fathers and the evils of the sovereigns of Yehuda and the evils of your wives and your own evils and the evils, and the evils of your wives which they have done in the land of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem? To this day they have not been humble, nor have they feared, nor have they walked in my Torah and in my laws that I set before you and your fathers. Therefore, thus said Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, See, I am setting my face against you for evil and for cutting off all Yehuda. And I shall take the remnant of Yehuda who have set their faces to go into the land of Mitzrayim to sojourn there. And they shall be consumed in the land of Mitzrayim, fall by the sword, consumed by the scarcity of food. From the least to the greatest they shall die by the sword and by scarcity of food, and they shall be an oath and an astonishment and a curse and a reproach, and I shall punish those dwelling in the land of Mitzrayim as I have punished Jerusalem by the sword, by scarcity of food, and by pestilence. You can run, but you can't hide. All right? And none of the remnant of Yehuda who have gone into the land of Mitzrayim to sojourn there shall escape or survive, lest they return to the land of Yehuda to which they are longing to return to dwell there, for they shall not return except those who escape. Then all the men who knew that their wives burned incense to other mighty ones, and all the women who stood by, a great assembly, and all the people who dwelt in the land of Mitzrayim in Pathros, answered Jeremiah, saying, We are not going to listen to you. That's kind of what happened with Stephen, isn't it? We're not going to listen to you in the matter about which you spoke to us in the name of Yahweh. But we shall do whatever has gone out of our own mouth to burn incense to the sovereignness of the heavens. You know who that is, don't you? It's Easter. It's Easter. to burn incense to the sovereigness of the heavens, and to pour out drink offerings to her as we have done, we and our fathers, our sovereigns, and our heads in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem. And we had plenty of food, and we were well off and saw no evil. Kind of like today, amen. But since we cease burning incense to the sovereigness of the heavens and pouring out drink offerings to her, we have lacked all and have been consumed by the sword and by the scarcity of food. And when we burned incense to the sovereigness of the heavens and poured out drink offerings to her, did we make cakes for her? To idolize her and pour out drink offerings to her without our husbands? Then Jeremy, you see what's going on here? The women are running the religious services of their house, and the men are letting it happen. All right? Verse 20, and Yirmiyahu spoke to all the people, to the men and to the women, and to all the people who had given him that answer, saying, as for the incense that you burned in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem, you and your fathers, your sovereigns and your heads, and the people of the land, did not Yahweh remember them? And it came into his heart. And Yahweh could no longer bear it because of the evil of your deeds and because of the abominations which you did. Therefore, your land is a ruin, an object of astonishment, a curse, and without an inhabitant, as it is to this day. Because you have burned incense and because you have sinned against Yahweh and did not obey the voice of Yahweh to walk in His Torah and His laws and His witnesses, therefore the evil did befall you as it is this day. And Yirmiyahu said to all the people and to all the women, hear the word of Yahweh, all Yehuda, you who are in the land of Mitzrayim. Thus spoke Yahweh of hosts to Elohim of Israel, saying, you and your wives have spoken with your mouths and have filled your hands, saying, we shall perform our vows that we made to burn incense to the sovereignness of the heavens, the Queen of heavens, and to pour out drink offerings to her. Then confirm your vows and perform your vows. Therefore hear the word of Yahweh, all Yehuda who are dwelling in the land of Mitzrayim. See, I have sworn by my great name, declares Yahweh, my name shall no longer be called upon by the mouth of any man of Yehuda in all the land of Mitzrayim, saying, as the master Yahweh lives, see, I am watching over them for evil and not for good, and all the men of Yehuda who are in the land of Mitzrayim shall be consumed by the sword and by scarcity of food until they come to an end. And those who escape the sword, few in number, shall return from the land of Mitzrayim to the land of Yehuda, and all the remnant of Yehuda who came into the land of Mitzrayim to sojourn there shall know whose word is established, mine or theirs. And this is the sign to you, declares Yahweh, that I am punishing you in this place, so that you know that my words are certainly established against you for evil. Thus said Yahweh, see, I am giving Pharaoh Khopra, sovereign of Mitzrayim, into the hand of his enemies and into the hand of those who seek his life, as I gave Zedekiah, sovereign of Yehuda, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, his enemy who sought his life. Do we see a reoccurring theme? All right, and we're going to look at one more of the prophets. When Yahweh becomes displeased with us, folks, because we're either worshiping something else altogether or worshiping in a way that He says that He hates, it's not going to work well for us, and He does not like it. And just like what happened here, you've got all these folks doing all these abominations to Him, and they may be saying in their own mind, well, when we did all this, we weren't going hungry. We weren't having scarcity of food. We seem to be being blessed. But it does say that Satan masquerades as a messenger of light, does he not? Amen. So, all right, the last of the prophets we're going to look at is Ezekiel chapter 8. And here may be another place where you can see one of the famous Easter observances taking place. How many people have ever heard of sunrise service? Yeah, Kathy got invited to one, and she said no. Ezekiel chapter 8, we're going to start reading in verse 1. And it came to be in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th of the month, as I sat in my house with the elders of Yehudah sitting before me, that the hand of the Master Yahweh fell upon me there. All right, you see where he is? He's sitting there with the elders of Yehudah, Judah. And I looked, verse 2, and I saw a likeness like the appearance of fire from his waist and downward. The appearance was like fire, and from his waist and upward, the appearance of brightness like glowing metal. And he stretched out the form of a hand and took me by a lock of my hair, and the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heavens and brought me in a vision of Elohim to Jerusalem, to the door of the north gate of the inner court, where the seat of the image of jealousy was, which causes jealousy. And see, the esteem of Elohim of Yisrael was there, like the vision that I saw in the plain. And he said to me, Son of man, please lift your eyes towards the north. And I lifted my eyes towards the north of the altar gate, and I saw this image of jealousy in the entrance. What's an image of jealousy? It's any idol that someone is worshiping, and it provokes Yahweh to jealousy. All right? So anyway, verse 6. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing? Isn't it what kind of same language he said to Jeremiah a while ago, isn't it? Do you see what they're doing in the streets of Yehudah? All right. Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The great abominations which the house of Yisrael are doing here, driving me away from my set apart place. And you are to see still greater abominations. And then he brought me to the door of the court, and I looked and saw a hole in the wall. And he said to me, Son of man, please dig into the wall. And when I dug into the wall, I saw a door. And he said to me, Go in and see the evil abominations which they are doing there. And I went in and looked, and I saw all kinds of creeping creatures, abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Yisrael carved around the walls. That would be things like rabbits and pigs and all sorts of creeping things. In the place where Yahweh is supposed to be worshipped. Is that right? Verse 11. And facing them stood 70 men of the elders of the house of Yisrael. In their midst stood Yaazanyahu, the son of Shaphan. Each one had a censer in his hand. That means he got incense in it. And a thick cloud of incense went up. And he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Yisrael are doing in the dark? Each one in the room of his idols? For they say, Yahweh does not see us. Yahweh has forsaken the land. And he said to me, You are to see still greater abominations which they are doing. And he brought me to the door of the north gate of the house of Yahweh, and I saw women sitting there weeping for Tammuz. Weeping for Tammuz. I'm told that there is the belief that this is where Lent came from originally. Then he said to me, Have you seen this, O son of man? You are to see still greater abominations than these. Do you know, he keeps telling, I'm going to show you even worse stuff and worse stuff and worse stuff. Right? And he brought me into the inner court of the house of Yahweh, and there at the door of the Hekal of Yahweh, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, and look at this, and with their back toward the Hekal of Yahweh, and their faces toward the east, they were bowing themselves eastward to the sun. They got their back turned to Yahweh, and they're bowing towards the sun at sunrise. That's what Kathy didn't go to. Sound like a sunrise service. All right? It is a sunrise service. Well, it don't sound like it. It is. It's a sunrise service. Now, of course, they say that they're doing this because the women went to the tomb early in the morning on the first day of the week. But look, the Hebrew calendar goes is it's not going to wind up, huh? That's right. But the way the Hebrew calendar goes, it's not going to be on, quote, Sunday every week, every year. We're doing that because we're trying to make it work into our own, on Sunday, on our own paradigm. Not really our own paradigm, but the people that are doing this. All right, so, verse 17. And he said to me, have you seen, O son of man? Is it a small matter to the house of Yehudah to do abominations which they have done here? For they have filled the land with violence and turned back to what? Provoke me. That's three different prophets. That's three different prophets. They must be hearing from the same person. Amen? Because he keeps saying the same thing. They're provoking me. They're provoking me. And see, they are putting the branch to my nose. Therefore I shall indeed deal in wrath. My eye shall not pardon, nor would I spare, and they shall cry in my ears with a loud voice, but I shall not hear them. Does this stuff provoke Yahweh? You bet it does. You bet it does. So, we see unclean animals worshiping goddesses by name, sun worship, even sunrise services, just like they have on Easter morning, and turning their back on Yahweh all the way back in ancient times in the Scripture. All right? Why can't they see it? Why won't they see it? Most likely it's because they've been given over to a strong delusion so that they believe the lie because they did not have a love of what? Of the truth. I mean, how do you just keep... But it makes me sad. Turn with me to 2 Kings chapter 23 because I want to show you that Josiah got it right. 2 Kings chapter 32. Yes, sir. 2 Kings 32. Oh, did I? I'm sorry. Hang on, I'm sorry. 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 1. Don't hit that button. Huh. 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 1. And the sovereign sent, and they gathered all the elders of Yehudah to Jerusalem, and that'd be the sovereign is YHWH or Josiah. And the sovereign went up to the house of Yahweh with all the men of Yehudah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant which had been found in the house of Yahweh. We're off to a good start already, aren't we? All right. And the sovereign stood by the column and made a covenant before Yahweh to follow Yahweh and to guard his commands and his witnesses and his laws with all his heart and all his being, to establish the words of this covenant that were written in the book. And all the people stood to the covenant. Then the sovereign commanded Kilikiyahu, the high priest, and the priests of the second order and the doorkeepers to bring out the Hekal of Yahweh, all the objects that were made for Baal and Asherah and for all the hosts of the heavens. We're seeing some familiar folks here. And he burned them outside Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron and took their ashes to Bethel. And he put down the black robe priests. Those sound familiar. Whom the sovereigns of Yehudah had appointed to burn incense on the high places in the cities of Yehudah and in the places all around Jerusalem, and those who burned incense to Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the constellations, and to all the hosts of the heavens. And he brought out the Asherah from the house of Yahweh to the Wadi Kidron outside Jerusalem, and burned it at the Wadi Kidron, and ground it to ashes, and threw its ashes on the graves of the sons of the people. And he broke down the house of the male cult prostitutes that were in the house of Yahweh, where the women wove tapestries for the Asherah. And he brought all the priests from the cities of Yehuda and defile the high places where the priests had burned incense, from Gebah to Beersheba, and broke down the high places at the gates, which were at the entrance of the gate of YHWH, the governor of the city, which were to the left of the city gate. However, the priests of the high places did not come up to the altar of Yahweh in Jerusalem, but they ate unleavened bread among their brothers. And he defiled Topheth, which was in the valley of the son of Hinnom, so that no man could make his son or daughter pass through the fire of Molech. This is just outside of Jerusalem. And he did away with the horses that the sovereigns of Yehuda had given to the sun at the entrance of the house of Yahweh by the room of Nathan Melech, the eunuch, that were in the court, and he burned the chariots of the sun with fire. And the altars that were on the roof of the upper room of Achaz, which the sovereigns of Yehuda had made, and the altars which Menashe had made in the two courtyards of the house of Yahweh, the sovereign broke down and rushed from there and threw their dust into the Wadi Kidron. You know what? Do you see how badly they are polluting Yahweh's worship? They're terribly polluting Yahweh's worship. And that's what we're kind of talking about today, amen? All right? Verse 13. And the sovereign defiled the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mountain of destruction, which Shlomo, sovereign of Yisrael, built for Ashtaroth. You remember what that word is, Ashtaroth? Easter? Star. And the abomination of the Zidonians, and for Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And he broke down the pieces, the pillars, and cut down the Esherim, and filled their places with the bones of men. And also the altar that was at Bethel, at the high place which Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, made, by which he made Yisrael sin. Both that altar and the high place he broke down, and he burned the high place and ground it to dust, and burned the Asherah. And Yoshiyahu turned and saw the tombs that were on the mountain, and he sent and took the bones out of the tombs and burned them on the altar, and defiled it according to the word of Yahweh, which the man of Elohim proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. You realize that's not Yahweh's altar he's talking about, defiling there. All right. And he said, "What tombstone is this I see?" And the men of the city said to him, "It is the tomb of the man of Elohim who came from Yehuda and proclaimed these matters which you have done against the altar of Bethel." And he said, "Let him alone. Let no one move his bones." So they left his bones alone with the bones of the prophet who came from Shomeron. And Yoshiyahu also took away all the houses of the high places that were in the cities of Shomeron, which the sovereigns of Israel had made to provoke. And he did to them according to all the deeds he did in Bethel. And he slaughtered all the priests of the high places who were there on the altars, and burned men's bones on them, and went back to Jerusalem. And the sovereign commanded all the people, saying, "Prepare the Passover to Yahweh." Man, I'm telling you, Josiah got it right, okay? And the sovereign commanded all the people, saying, "Prepare the Passover to Yahweh your Elohim." He's cleaning all that Easter stuff out, isn't he? All right. As it is written in the book of the covenant, for such a Passover had not been prepared since the days the rulers who ruled over Yisrael, nor in all the days of the sovereigns of Yisrael and the sovereigns of Yehuda. But in the 18th year of the sovereign Yoshiyahu, this Passover was prepared before Yahweh in Jerusalem. And also Yoshiyahu put away those who consulted mediums and spiritists, and the household of mighty ones and idols, and all the abominations that were seen in the land of Yehuda and in Jerusalem, in order to establish the words of the Torah, hallelujah, which were written in the book of Hilkiah, the priest, found in the house of Yahweh. And before him there was no sovereign like him, who turned back to Yahweh with all his heart and with all his being and with all his might, according to all the Torah of Moshe, and after him none rose up like him. Yes, Josiah got it right. Josiah got it right. What kind of transformation there'd be in this land if more people were willing to do in their own homes what Josiah did in the land of Yehuda. Amen. Right? He got rid of all the garbage and worshiped that which is true. Amen? Right? He did not provoke Yahweh, but rather he blessed him. And perhaps we should think about Josiah before we follow Peter Cottontail hopping all the way to hell. Because the bunny trail is very wide and it leads to destruction, just like Yahshua said. And Yahshua said to enter through the narrow gate. Yevrakeka Yahweh ba'ish mareka Yair Yahweh panavaleka bikaneka Yasa Yahweh panavaleka biasem lakat shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you his complete contentment.